Hello and welcome to the 100th radio edition of Does the Team Think? And celebrating our centenary are Cyril Fletcher, Tommy Trinder, Ted Ray, and the man who thought it all up, Professor Jimmy Edwards. And now waiting to ask the first question is Miss M.L. Razell.
Does the team think it's better to shop at a supermarket or have the personal attention of a small private store?
Does the team think it better to shop at a supermarket or have the personal attention of a small private store? Tommy Trinder.
Well, I feel it's better to go to a small private store because I find that getting measured for a suit in a supermarket...
And you've got more chance of being served with a bottle of tomato ketchup.
I think one would look silly with your pants off in a supermarket.
You speak for yourself. I've got the sexiest legs in Winchmore Hill.
Cyril Fletcher.
I think that it's much nicer to be served by a private store because one never knows where one is in one of these supermarkets. You never know which bit to go to. And when you've got there...
Usually the blonde is the bit.
You find that you may get your thing very quickly when you serve yourself. But it takes about 20 minutes to queue up before you can pay for it.
Because he comes from a long line of shoplifters. I think that the little store was better, really, because it had more atmosphere. Nowadays, in these big supermarkets, everything is pre-wrapped in cellophane. It's weighed out and...
I don't agree about the little store having more atmosphere, because in a store the other day, in a supermarket, it had crab 20% off. Well, crab, when it's off, gives you an enormous amount of atmosphere.
But really, the smaller stores had it. They used to put the money in little sort of boxes and pull it, and you had to duck. Remember?
Ted, the man who thought this game up hasn't had a word so far, except yes, that's all he said.
I never go shopping.
Never?
No, I make it a rule never to go shopping.
Where do
you see that way he dresses, his wife shops.
Well, you can always ring up for anything you want, I reckon.
But can we suppose that you go shopping?
No.
Oh.
Like a small store because you can't ring up one of these supermarkets.
I suppose you
and get
can't.
10%
I've never
down.
seen one.
You can't ring up a supermarket. No,
Well,
they're on the
they
phone.
don't deliver, do they?
Pardon?
They don't
deliver, no.
They don't deliver.
But the old shops with those wires, and to see a man cut a cheese, to the very amount that you wanted, instead of it all wrapped in tinfoil.
What key?
And then my mother used to send me to this little general store, and she'd say, you could buy half a loaf. She'd say, get half a loaf and ask the man to cut it with a hammy knife. And we all used to fight who got the top slice.
What Ted is trying to say, and doesn't want to be sort of dishonest about the whole thing, you cannot either phone up a supermarket, neither can you get credit. But the little man at the corner, you can say, put it down on the slate, I'll be round at Friday.
So right, they would trust you, they would trust you.
What is the system in a supermarket? Do you go have a little trolley or something, don't you?
Miss Razell, you tell Jimmy Edwards what the system is in a supermarket.
Well, in the supermarket, you just walk in and help yourself. You must take a basket, whether you want anything for twopence or 2 and 6. And you have to stand at the line and wait for the cashier to take your basket. And you gentlemen who like to talk so much can never have a little chat with the girl behind the counter.
Oh, that's what you think.
I'm a
You
very
see
slow
the-
walker.
Yeah, and the queue that gets behind me at the cash desk.
Well, I do work in one of these places.
No, I don't. I have a private store.
Oh, I see.
You have a private
Well, I'd
store.
far rather come to your store than to this place you've just described. What do you sell, if it's of any interest?
Everything.
Oh, how nice. I'll have half a crown's worth of that.
I'll come round and get a couple of violin strings next week.
You can even deliver them if you like to ring us.
I don't want to deliver it, I want to come and have a chat with you.
She sells, she doesn't give anything away.
In Wales, you see, in Wales, they have these little people who are known and were known for years
What, gnomes?
by the what they know.
You mean little gnome?
No.
Razzle the shop.
People used to, that's right, they used to have, say, Razzle, if you were a baker, they'd say Razzle the bread, you see,
I
or
see.
Williams the fruit, or the dairyman used to be known as Evans the clot.
Ray the sunshine.
Professor, when did you in fact go into a shop on the last occasion?
An off license, I'll bet you.
See, you can ring up for everything, even for that. I can't remember when I went and bought this pipe that I'm smoking.
You see, I think with Jimmy Edwards, his money situation is so bad that he can't afford to go shopping.
That's only a room we've been put round to fool the government.
Thank you, team, very much, and thank you, Miss Roselle. Thank you very much. And now we say hello to Mr. Morris B. Oram.
Can the team suggest ways and means of making a lot of money quickly by honest means?
I doubt it. Can the team suggest ways and means of making a lot of money quickly by honest means?
Bingo.
A private individual can't
You can.
make money from bingo.
You can go in there and play.
Ah, yes, but
Make a lot of money?
The chances there are very much against you winning a lot of
Are
money.
they? What are they?
Ah, he means running it.
No, I mean playing it.
Now, I would say, Mr. Oram, that there are today no honest means of making a lot of money.
Nonsense. Have you met my agent?
I've seen your act, which proves he doesn't do it honestly. No, what I was saying is, you see, the only thing today, owing to the terrific amount of tax one has to pay, the way you can make money is, of course, to gamble. That, to me, isn't honest. And so I would say that nobody today can make a lot of money honestly.
Oh, I don't agree. Tommy's wrong. The thing is,
Tommy Rock.
If there was any way of, Ted, if there was any way of making money, I would have thought of it.
well, there is a way of making money. It's a matter of your own brain power in looking ahead and beating the other fellow to the punch. For instance, you can do it in property deals. It's still possible to buy property in the right district for improvement, and this, of course, becomes capital gain and is not subject to tax.
Ah, it is. You can only do it once. If you make a business of it, then you pay super tax.
But if you do it big enough once, it's all right.
Yes, it's rather like the
Listen to
chap
these
who-
two tycoons arguing.
Now listen, Charlie Claw.
Well, what is it, Mr. Cotton?
What about the chap who was told by his boss to make a property deal, and he rang up his boss the next day and said, "This is quite marvellous. I pulled it off. £3 million, exactly as you said. But the trouble is, there is a snag. They want £500 down in cash."
That's very good. Then again, the stock market. If you can only anticipate what will be in demand next year.
Yes,
These suggestions of yours, though, you need a certain amount of capital to start off with.
Well, you don't think anyone's going to conjure this money out of thin air?
You don't think we're in the habit of talking to beggars and advising them? You come to us for your advice, you've got to have a little wherewithal to start with.
What about inventions? If you could invent something that there's a tremendous demand for and has never been invented, I'll give you one.
Yes.
You
Jimmy
prob-
Edwards, he invented this game and gets 2 guineas a show out of it.
Of which I give 2 shillings to my agent.
So you're robbing him?
No, 4 shillings, isn't it?
Absolutely, 4 and threepence.
But you see, if you can get a great big sheet of canvas, I'm quite serious, Mr. Oram, if you can get sufficient publicity in a big sheet of canvas, you throw a lot of paint on it, and then you either run over it with a bike or roll a nude woman over it.
Yeah, I'd rather do that. But she's got to be on a bicycle.
How can you get rid of a green woman, anyway? And then, you see, you get this canvas and you hang it up in a big West End shop window. Nothing else in the window except this, not the woman, the canvas, you see. And there it is. And underneath you put fugitive or something. And they will be queuing up to buy it.
Oh, but you've got to sign it Charlie Drake at the bottom.
But where else could Charlie Drake sign except at the bottom?
Have any members of the team ever been lucky enough to make a lot of money for very little effort, apart from on this program?
We're not giving our secrets away.
The trouble is, you see, he's quite right, Mr. Oram. Earning money is the most stupid thing you can possibly do because you only have to pay tax in it. You've got to make money in some capital way. Buy something. Now, for instance, if you could only have bought the M1 before they built it and then sold it to them. Or something like that. Something big and imaginative. You're fiddling about earning money. I'm sorry.
Everyone is a self-made man, but it's only the successful ones that will admit it.
Every successful man, when he writes his autobiography, started off by selling newspapers. That seems to be the thing.
Well, I
sell
don't know.
newspapers.
I didn't. And,
Of course not. You didn't want to waste your time selling something you couldn't understand.
Thank you very much, team, and thank you very much, Mr. Oram. Thank you. And now it's time to say hello to Mrs. Jill Bennett.
Does the team think the advantages of a holiday abroad outweigh those of a holiday in Britain?
Does the team think the advantages of a holiday abroad outweigh those of a holiday in Britain?
The weather is the obvious answer to this, isn't it? I mean, during the summer months when the weather is very questionable here, very doubtful to forecast, you can be sure of a pretty decent holiday if you go down to the south of France or Spain or somewhere like that.
Oh, charming. Go to somewhere in the West Indies and have a hurricane, a tornado, or an earthquake, or some volcanoes or something.
I don't like hurricanes on my tornadoes, if you don't mind.
But if you want
They're
to...
lovely with tomato ketchup.
It's the word outweigh that worries me, Mrs. Bennett. Because if I go abroad for a holiday, I always outweigh myself when I come back.
I think it's a bad thing to go abroad because there's no chance to see your favourite star in a summer show.
But this country, of course, has got such a lot to offer, if only we had the weather. Now, imagine anything better than going to Scotland and looking at the Trossachs.
What?
Cossacks?
The Trossachs!
I thought you said the Cossacks.
No, the Trossachs. And going to Ireland and watching the shillelaghs breed. And then going to a beauty contest in Wales and looking at all the Welsh rarebits.
Professor, where in fact did you spend your holiday last summer?
I go a short tour of the breweries.
On horseback, and the horse is like a homing pigeon. Knows where to take him back at the end of the day.
My wife once persuaded me to take her to Rome for a holiday, but after 3 days, nobody knowing who the hell I was, I came back. I was irritated.
You big-headed so-and-so.
Of course. As soon as they realised I wasn't American, they didn't pay any attention to me at all.
Can't understand why they didn't take you for an American.
No, I mean, you dress like an American.
But you see, life is one long holiday with us, Mrs. Bennett.
You speak for yourself.
We don't really. I mean, we don't really need to take a holiday. All the places we're asked to go and work are either seaside resorts or health resorts like Dewsbury and places like that.
Poor old Dewsbury always gets it. Let's give Stockport a bashing.
Dewsbury hasn't got what it deserves to get yet, I can tell you.
Isn't it charming? He must have died in Dewsbury.
They didn't like me in Dewsbury.
They didn't like him in Dewsbury.
They closed the theatre after I'd finished there.
Do you know what he had to do? He had to shave to leave the town under incognito.
Mrs. Bennett, did you have a holiday abroad last year?
No.
Do you intend to have a holiday abroad this year?
We'll probably go abroad to the Isle of Wight.
Very nice place, too.
Very wonderful.
Lovely.
There's a very
To
good
me,
service.
I think the biggest disadvantage going abroad, I always think if I'm in a plane, it's going to crash, or if I'm in a boat, I think it's going to sink.
Listen, the only way to cure yourself of that is to read the statistics on the subject. And the fact is that more aeroplanes come down safely than don't.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well, just remember that next time you hear the engines go.
But it's very dangerous even travelling on a plane when the flying conditions are good, because the last time I got on a plane, I must have said something wrong because the air hostess belted me in my seat.
You know that little notice they have in the aeroplane that says, fasten your, what do they call them, lap straps?
In your case, it says fasten your 2 safety belts.
Fasten
Or
safety belts,
tie your moustache to the back of the seat.
and it says no smoking. And when the pilot concludes that he has made a proper and safe takeoff and enough altitude, he switches it off. And I sit in the seat, absolutely with my eyes glued to this, rigid from head to foot. When it goes off, I relax.
I must tell you this, Mrs. Bennett, don't you listen to one word that Jimmy Edwards is saying, because he's a very modest man, a holder of the DFC. He has no right to talk about being nervous in an aeroplane.
Listen, when you've been a pilot, there's one thing you don't want to do is sit in the back.
Wait a minute, Mac. I wanted to say one thing which we haven't touched on at all.
Mrs. Roselle.
No wonder you're not concentrating on this question. Making cow eyes at Mrs. Roselle.
I might add that it is Miss
I was just
Roselle.
going to... Pardon?
Miss Roselle.
Miss Roselle with a shop. I'll be there. But you know...
On the slate.
When you
It'll
think...
be on the slate,
It'll be on the slate. The food
Ted Ray.
question. The food question.
food
Now, what is more wonderful than to go to India and eat curry?
Go to Kensington and eat curry.
Italy.
Go to Brewer Street
Shut
and have
up.
Jewish food.
Go to Italy and eat spaghetti. Go to France and have the escargot.
Come to the Trinders and have tomato ketchup.
And go to Brussels and eat the sprouts.
Thank you very much, team, and thank you, Mrs. Bennett. And now it's time to introduce our celebrity guest. Well, this being our 100th programme, we thought it would be rather nice to invite a man who's been in Does the Team Think at various times as panellist, guest and chairman. And not only that, his own show, Beyond Our Ken, has recently celebrated its 100th birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Kenneth Horne, who wishes to remain anonymous.
Looking back on the first 100 Does the Team Think programmes, what does the team recall with greatest pleasure?
Looking back on the first 100 Does the Team Think programmes, what does the... I'm going to repeat the question for the benefit of the listeners. Looking back on the first 100 Does the Team Think programmes, what does the team recall with the greatest pleasure?
The arrival of the first cheque.
Thank you, Cyril.
Followed by the arrival of the first Polish gentleman.
I recall with the greatest pleasure was when we had a gentleman, very immaculate, silver white hair, beautifully groomed, carnation.
Sounds like Akabilk.
No. And he said, does the team think it's right for these beatniks and teenagers to dress so slovenly? And Jimmy Edwards said, I don't think they dress slovenly. And the gentleman said, Mr. Edwards, have you ever looked at yourself? You look like an unmade bed. Well, for the next 20 minutes, the team never said a word whilst Jimmy Edwards had it all to himself.
My most treasured moment was when Tommy was away somewhere, chasing a football player or
We
a
all
woman.
treasured that week, yes.
That was the week, that was. And Jimmy wasn't feeling too well. And Cyril maintained a gentlemanly silence while I was allowed to finish a joke. That was my most treasured memory.
Professor?
Yeah.
Professor, yeah. Very professorial, that is.
And what was your most treasured moment on the
Well,
programme?
actually, I must admit it was from Ted. When the fella
in my
came
day,
on-
isn't it?
The fella came on who'd been something to do with in Cyprus with me, and they'd thrown a bomb at us or something. And I said, well, I concluded that they threw a bomb at me because they thought I was somebody important. And Ted said, yes, Kitchener.
Did I say that? I didn't know I was as good as that.
I remember mentioning it too, Ted.
Cyril?
I must say that my most treasured moment was when I couldn't get a word in edgeways with Trinder here, and I poured the glass of water over him, and he dashed to the front of the audience and showed them his trousers and made a most ribald remark.
Gentlemen of the team, we've got a past chairman here. In your time as chairman of this programme, can you remember anything particularly amusing that happened? And I hope you can.
The nice thing about being on the show is how obedient the panel always are, I think, Mac. I mean, you've only got to ask them to keep quiet and they just say, shut up, don't they? Stay away. And the same when you're on the panel, it works the reverse way. You start and tell a nice story and you can't get a word in
We
edgeways.
like to try and create the atmosphere of the House of Commons here. You see, nobody paying any attention to anybody, and the chairman...
What I like about this program is the fact that it is so uninhibited. You can come here, it's about the only thing we do, radio-wise, that's entirely unscripted, which it is, in spite of what people may or may not think. And I think, I'm sure that I'm speaking for all of the panel, even the hairy ones, we get a tremendous kick out of doing something entirely off the cuff. And that is my honest, it's a real pleasure, don't you think?
Why do you write these things on your cuff?
Cyril, I'm going to try and forget that. It won't be easy.
Now, I must say that my most treasured memory is when Ted Ray played straight man to Cyril Fletcher.
Kenneth Horne, in which capacity have you enjoyed yourself most on this programme? Guest, panellist or chairman?
Well, I think it's a great deal easier to be in the chair, Mac, with great respect to you,
Oh, it
because
is.
you can at least be a little bit firm with them every now and then, and you have got a chance to repeat the questions that the contestants here ask. Apart from that, you've got very little chance of saying anything at all.
Yes, sir,
And
right.
when you're on the other side there with the panellists, you've had it, chum.
I say,
Absolutely.
Mac and Kenneth,
Yes.
this is very interesting. Please hear me out, gentlemen.
Yes, of course we will. Of
course.
Yes,
Yes,
we're looking forward to it.
Yes, we won't interrupt you.
Now, listen, I've often wondered
We shan't
why...
interrupt.
We shan't say
No,
a
we
word.
shan't say a
No, no,
word.
no, no.
What were you trying to say, old chap?
Oh, yes, very good.
I've often wondered why you go to all the trouble of repeating this question. Now, when Freddie Griswold is doing a show from the depths of the country, I can understand it, because the yokel gets up, or whoever it is, and they say, "Does the mighty garden trade the fire, the smoking and reside?" And he says, they want to know why people don't like standing up in buses.
What do you say the second time then, Ted?
Yes,
I understood the
we
first
didn't
one.
understand
I shall have to go seriously into the
I should go see your psychiatrist. Or Miss Roselle.
I think any man who goes to a psychiatrist. If I want to see Miss Roselle, I don't need a psychiatrist.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Kenneth Horne.
Before I dash away, Mac, will you please ask me back for the 200th edition?
Certainly, with pleasure. Thank you, Kenneth Horne. And now we say hello to Mrs. Alwyn Mason.
If the members of the team are recognised while out shopping privately or on a visit somewhere, do they prefer to be acknowledged or not?
Now say it nicely, Mac. Repeat it nicely. Come on, Freddie.
If the members of the team are recognised whilst out shopping privately or in a private somewhere, do they prefer to be acknowledged or not?
Very good. Very good.
Yes, I love it. I'm irritated when they don't recognise me. I've often walked up to somebody and said, "Well, who the hell do you think you are walking past me like that without saying good morning?" It's Jim.
I was doing a summer season in Great Yarmouth.
Aha.
And 4 ladies stopped me in the street, and one said, "It isn't." And I didn't know what she meant, but I assumed that she meant that it was I. So I said, "Yes, I'm afraid." She said, "It never is." And I said, "Yes, indeed." And she said, "Oh, we're on a mystery trip." This is true. I said, "Really? Where from?" She said, "Oh, from Langoo." And I said, "Oh, that's very nice." And she said, "Oh, it's very nice to see you." And I said, "Thank you." And then she grabbed me by the arm and she said, "There's 2 more ladies from our party sitting on the seat by the pier. Hurry up, you'll just catch them."
The one I love is when someone grabs me and said, "You're much younger than you look on television, Bruce Forsyth."
Lady came up to me one day and said, "Could you oblige my daughter?" And I said, "It's quite true." I said, "With what, madam? I'm a bit slow." She said, "An autograph." I said, "How dull."
Cyril Fletcher.
Somebody came up to me and said, "You're number 1 on my hit parade," and then he hit me. This honestly happened to me last night. I've been a member of the Savage Club for the last 20 years. I went there to have dinner last night. You're supposed to give your name to the waiter so that he puts it on top of the bill. Each waiter, 3 of them, asked me my name, which I gave to each one of them. I then went to pay my bill, and the head waiter said, "Ah, Mr. Frobisher, now let me see how much..."
No wonder they call it the Savage Club. All the members must be furious.
When I gave him the tip, he said, "Thank you, Mr. McLaren."
Ted Ray.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a moment where you've rather not been recognised when you were?
Well, I'll tell you a true story about being recognised. I'm a great football follower, not as in such a high position as Tommy, but just as a mere spectator. And I have my own favourite club, which happens to be Arsenal. And I parked my...
There will now be 2 minutes silence.
But I was going to the Arsenal this particular day. And I parked my car about a half a mile from the ground because, there's a lot of cars there. And the windows of the houses opened and people were shouting, "Oh, Ted, hurry, old Ted," very friendly. But I thought, well, it's drawing a bit of attention to me. And I was a bit self-conscious. People were turning around. So I went to my wig maker and I asked him to make me a small moustache. And this is the truth. This is absolutely true. And he got this moustache, and it was absolutely right. He gave me a little bottle of spirit gum, and the following Saturday, I went to my parking place with this moustache glued on, and I was wearing sunglasses and a check cap and an overcoat. I got out of the car, knowing that I'd be quite safe, and the window shut up, and I said, "Hey, Ted, what you got the moustache on for?"
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mrs. Mason. Thank you very much. And now it's time to say hello to Mrs. Audrey Mitchell.
If the members of the team had the power of hypnosis, who would they like to hypnotise and why?
If the members of the team had the power of hypnosis, who would they like to hypnotise and why?
Mrs. Razzle! Mrs. Razzle, have a go round the shop.
Ted Ray?
I would like to hypnotise a hypnotist. I would like to attend a theatre where one of these jokers was out there bringing the public up and making them look rather silly, which some of them do. And I would like to come up and pretend that I was just as idiotic as the others. It wouldn't be very difficult. Got that in very quickly. And then I would look this man straight in his eyes, and I would say, "You are a schoolboy. Roll up your trousers and suck a toffee apple." And I'd have him looking as silly as he makes some of the people in the audience. That's what I would do. I can't find my moustache anywhere.
After this programme, he doesn't want to be recognised going out.
I don't blame him.
No, it must have been stolen.
There's a lot of
Professor.
moustaches being stolen these days, you know. I've got mine insured.
Against dandruff.
Funny, one day I was doing a television show and I had to wear a wig and a beard. And they're going to makeup afterwards and the girl pulled off the beard, she pulled off the wig and then she started on the moustache. I said, "Hang on! She's got the spirit already on it. Methylated spirit and trying to pull it off." I said,
That was
"No,
a
no."
lovely story. Now, Professor.
I didn't like the tone of his voice
be so-
at all. We'll have
so
Kenneth Horne back,
condescending.
you know.
Professor, who would you like to hypnotise?
You!
What about a traffic warden?
Well, you see,
Could you imagine, just as he was going to write out your ticket, you could look at him straight in the eye and say, "Clean that windscreen."
you know, there are people about who practice hypnosis of a different sort. I mean, say, if you say something to somebody often enough, they'll believe it. Now, for example, somebody must have said to you, Trinder, many times when you were a child, that you were funny, and you finally began to believe it.
And what is more, they proved it. They sent me to a special school.
There's no doubt about it that Jimmy is right, though. And you can do this self-hypnosis, you know. You can tell yourself that a thing will happen,
Yeah.
providing it is within the bounds of possibility, and you can make it happen.
I look at a pint of beer and I say, "Now that is going to go down your throat, Jim."
Thank you very much, team. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. And that, I'm sorry to say, brings us to the end of the 100th edition of Does the
Next is
Team
number
Think?
101.
On behalf of our team, Jimmy Edwards, Ted Ray, Tommy Trinder and Cyril Fletcher, and our fan, Kenneth Horne, our producer, Edward Taylor, and myself, Mac Hobley. May I say thank you to those who've asked questions, those who've written in, and of course, all our listeners. Goodbye to you all. Goodbye.